Welcome back, and in this video this is going to be the first one into helping you understand and how to operate AutoCAD. Before we get started, I just would like to know that I'm starting a Patreon page, or if you find any value in this video, please hit the like, share, or comment on this video below, and I look forward to you learning a lot from me today, hopefully. I'll go ahead and start the intro and then let's get started. So as you can see from the PowerPoint, we're going to be taking a look at the introduction phase of AutoCAD. And I will make a follow-up video to this one. This video is going to be strictly about this PowerPoint. The next video that I'm going to make in reference to this will be kind of referencing to the PowerPoint and back in AutoCAD. So we'll go back and forth just so I can make sure I teach you the concepts that I'm trying to give you in this video. Some of the things that we're going to be discussing in this is going to be some assumptions that I'm going to assume that you know here in the beginning, and I'll tell you exactly what they are. We're going to take a look at the user interface. We're going to talk about the mouse and keyboard, and then we're going to start actually transitioning into AutoCAD. If you can see or think of AutoCAD as nothing more than a big piece of graphing paper, that's going to help you out a lot with understanding this. And then the last things that we're going to do, I'm going to actually teach you a couple of commands today. Well, actually, about 3 of them. So we're going to take a look at the line command, the erase, and then there is a command in OOPS. So we're going to learn a lot in this video, hopefully, about how to interact with AutoCAD and to make it work. The first thing that I'm going to assume is that you already have AutoCAD downloaded. So if you go to the website that's listed here, you can go and download AutoCAD just by using this. Now, you will have to set up an account with them. What I would recommend you do is, if you set up an account and you have a student email account, which means that it ends in .edu, you use that one, because if you use and set up that one, you're going to get to use AutoCAD for a lot longer. So that's going to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it will allow you to have it for a whole year. If you use it with any other extension on the end of your email, you're only going to get it for about 3 months. From what I understand, I think it's 3 months, or it may be 30 days. I'm really close. I'm really probably sure that it's going to be the 30 days. The second thing is that you know how to use Microsoft Windows. You know how to use a mouse and you know how to use a keyboard. You know, everybody should know their left from their right, and believe it or not, it's a simple concept. But when I usually say left click, somebody will usually right click. So understanding that you're going to have to use the mouse a little bit. So you're going to have to use the left and the right clicker on your mouse, and you will have to have a scroll wheel, and I'll show you some pictures of that. There is a Mac version of AutoCAD, but all of these videos will be using Windows. The concept is the same, but the Mac version, remember that the mouse is a lot different in there and the way that it interacts, so you're going to have to go and find videos that are referencing how to use AutoCAD for a Mac user. Third thing that I want you to use, or hopefully that you know, is how to use simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You know, it's very simple concepts in AutoCAD. If you find yourself doing some extreme math or trigonometry or some of that nature, you're probably overcomplicating the problem. So I want you to understand that you need to use simple math here, and if it starts getting to that point, then yeah, I will let you know another alternative way. But as far as I understand, all of the videos that I'm going to create and all of the examples and things of that nature should be simple. And last but not least, which probably should be the first thing, is that you understand English. So you can understand that I'm talking to you in English, although if you just want to follow along, and you're going to see that when I'm doing example videos, there will be, you know, you're able to follow my mouse. So I guess you can turn the sound off and follow me, but if you want to hear the concept, I guess you're understanding English. Alright, so here is what's AutoCAD going to look like. Now, when you download and successfully install AutoCAD on your computer, you should get an icon that looks like this. It's going to be some version of it depending on which year that you downloaded it. But overall, AutoCAD has not changed its interface in a while. Some of the icons may be different, but it's going to ideally look like this. So when you double click on it, it's going to open up and it's going to either ask you, do you want to start working, or it's going to give you some templates and things of that nature. Just click on the new icon and then this is going to open up. And then you're going to see in the introduction videos, it's going to be usually using commands that are somewhere in here. So anything that has to deal with the draw, modify, or anything of that nature, we're just going to strictly learn how to draw things. Some of the other things we're going to do, we're going to also know how to create some layers. And that's what's going to be inside of this box. This icon here that's in green, that is the UCS. So this is just nothing. This is telling me exactly what 0, 0 is. Very important. All right. Especially when we're using one of the methods. Well, actually, you're going to see that all of the stuff kind of reference to this a little bit. But there are some ways that we don't have to actually know where this is at. But it is really important to know where it's at. The next thing we're going to take a look at is going to be the command line. This command line is going to be super important. Now, there's going to be two places where AutoCAD is going to interact with you. One of them is going to be on this command line, and the command line, if you're using the dynamic input, and we're going to go into what that is a little bit later, that the commands will interact with you right next to your crosshairs here. So it's going to be in one of those two places. And the reason why they're going to show up in one of those two places is going to determine if you have your dynamic input turned on and off. The last thing we're going to take a look at here is going to be this quick access panel. So when we're interacting with AutoCAD, especially with function keys and things of that nature, you're going to see these buttons light up. Now remember that anytime these light up as blue, that means that they are activated. For example, on this one, you can see that the grid is turned blue, and you can look in the graphics area here and you see all the lines and things of that nature. Some of the things that we're not going to really get into is this view cube. This deals more or less with 3D stuff. So we're not going to have to worry about that. All right. So like I was saying, the mouse that we're going to be using is going to be a 3-button mouse. I'm going to say left click. That means click on the left button. Here's the right click button. That's going to be used to bring up all of your menus. We have a scroll button. Now this is going to have two functions. So I can zoom in and out by scrolling in and out. And I can also hold this button down, and that will give me a pan function. All right, so I want you to understand that that's going to be really important when you want to take a look at some or just move the screen over or give yourself a little bit more room. Some of the typical buttons that we're going to use is going to be the escape button. And everybody should know what that one is on your keyboard. Today we're going to actually take a look at the @ symbol, and knowing where that's at and how to activate that is you got to hold down the shift button and the number 2. That's going to give me the @ symbol. The less than symbol is what we're going to use to create angles. So when we start doing things that have angle lines on it, you have to hold down the shift button and then select the comma. Okay, so we're going to actually use both of these. We're going to use the comma, and we're going to have to use the less than symbol or the angle symbol. The space bar has a dual function. It actually is the enter button. So you can either select the enter button or you can select the space bar. Now, the only time this space bar will not be an enter button is if we're in any kind of texting command. So if we're typing or texting stuff out or writing some text, then it's going to be a space bar. And this last one is going to be the apostrophe button. This is a transparency. Basically what it means is that if I'm in a command, I can activate another command and then kind of finish out that command, and then it jumps me back to the original command that I used. So we're going to take a look at that, especially if we're doing any kind of calculations, because I like to use the computer or the calculator that's inside of AutoCAD in order to help me do some mathematics that if I don't want to do math, or if it's something that I just don't have my calculator handy. The function keys on your keyboard, they all have certain features and things of that nature. So like I was saying before, that any of these F keys that you see is going to actually toggle on a lot of these things down here on my quick access panel. So for example, if I click on the F1, that's typically help, like in all of the Microsoft Windows function. But if I want to toggle my O-snaps on and off, I can hit the function key 3 or F3, that's the one that's highlighted red here, and it's going to toggle the one that I'm highlighting right now. It's going to turn that on or off. So when we start dealing with O-snaps, you're going to have the power to turn those on and off. Another common one that we're going to take a look at, and especially today, is going to be F8. That controls our ortho mode. So if you're looking for ortho mode, that's going to be this icon, and it's currently turned off. And then we're going to also take a look at polar tracking, object snap tracking, and the dynamic input. Just in case if you're kind of curious, then we're going to take a look at dynamic input first. It's going to be this icon here. Don't worry, because most likely when you first open up AutoCAD, this icon is not showing up. So once we get to actually opening up the AutoCAD portion of this, I will show you how to activate that and turn that on. Alright, the first thing I want you to understand is that it's going to work like a graphing paper, just like I said before. Anytime you're going to create things in AutoCAD, you can type in the coordinates. So basically what I'm saying is that if I'm going to create this rectangle, I know what 0, 0 is. Remember that I told you about the UCS here at the bottom. So when I go into the line command, I have to type in what point I want to do. So if I want to go and type in 3, 3, that's going to start me here at this point. And then I'll type in the next coordinate. And you're going to have to, and it makes kind of sense that you're going to have to kind of coordinate the next point to create this square. So you just can't jump around randomly and hopefully that it goes into a square or a rectangle. So what you're going to have to do is go type in this coordinates, and you do not need the brackets. I'm going to type in here, and then I'll type in these coordinates, and these coordinates. The most important thing about AutoCAD is that if you're going to use this absolute method, and basically what I'm saying is that if you know every single coordinate or every single point that you're going to have to do, your dynamic input must be turned off. That's going to be this icon. And remember again, once we get to the AutoCAD portion, I will show you how to bring that button on. Some of the other things that you need to understand is that if I know where 0, 0 is, if I type in negative numbers, they're going to pop up depending on which one is negative. So if I type in a negative X number, it's going to be in this quadrant. So somewhere over here. If I type in a negative Y, it's going to be somewhere down here. So hopefully that you remember this back from grade schools when you were actually figuring out how to plot things and graph things on number lines and in a graphing setting. That's what this is. And if you remember that each one of these quadrants have some special features about them. You know, if you're in quadrant 1, all the numbers are positive. That means both of these coordinates are going to be positive. If I'm in quadrant 2, the X values are negative and the Y values are going to be positive. If you're in quadrant 3, both of the values are going to be negative, and you can kind of see that here. I'm on the negative side of the X, I'm in the negative side of the Y, and in the fourth quadrant here, my X values will be positive and my Y values will be negative. The next method that we're going to take a look at is going to be the relative method. So the relative method is going to tell you about you're going to use the at symbol. And what this at symbol means is that from the last point. So here, I can start my shape or whatever I'm creating from anywhere I want to. Now, by default, when we get to looking at AutoCAD and we're going to look at the line command, all of these creating or draw commands, the first time you activate that command, the first thing it's going to ask you for is a coordinate. One of your options is that you can type in numbers. That is going to be an absolute value, believe it or not. So most of these commands, when we use them, the first thing you're going to do is go you can absolutely do something, or you can select anywhere on your screen. So you're going to tell it where to start from. And that's going to be one of the kind of hidden features of it. So I know I say the absolute means that you got to know where every single point is, or you can know where the first point is. And I hope that I'll be able to explain this more when we get to AutoCAD. Now with the relative method, I would recommend that you turn your dynamic input on. Mainly because you're going to see that it's going to do something special for you. And what it's going to actually do is it's going to create this at symbol. So this is going to stop you from having to go ahead and hold down the shift button and hit number 2 every time that you want to type in this. The way the relative method works is that it's asking you for the distance from the last point, or the location from the last point. So if I'm starting here and I'm going in the same direction, I want to get to this point, I'm going to type in at 5 because I'm going 5 units going this direction, and then in the Y value I'm going 0, so I'm not going up or down or anything of that nature. So that's why the command or the syntax for this is going to be at 5, 0. If I want to go up to this point, it's at 0 because I'm changing nothing on the X-axis, but I'm going 6 up on the Y-axis. you can see as I'm going to the left here, that value becomes negative. Okay, so I'm going to the left. So remember this, that anyway, if I'm going left on the x-axis, it's a negative number. If I'm going right, positive number. If I'm going up, it's a positive y value. And I'm going down, it's going to be a negative value. Okay, so I hope that you kind of understand that. And you can kind of see that more if I kind of go back to this. And that's all it is referencing to this number line. All right, but what I would do is I would turn my dynamic input on this case. In this option, you can either have it on or off. It's going to be strictly up to you. But if you want to save yourself some keystrokes, if you have it turned on, it's going to save you from that @ symbol. One other thing about it is that @ symbol does not automatically come in on all commands. So when we come across it, I'm going to actually tell you that you have to type in the @ symbol. So just because I have the dynamic input on, it's not going to do it for every single thing, but it will do it for the majority of them. The next one is going to be the polar method. All right, so the polar method deals with angles. And once again, we're taking the same rectangle. The dynamic input can be turned on or it can be turned off. Once again, it has the same function. If I have that turned on, the @ symbol is going to be created there for me. In this one, the way it explains is that we have to create angles. So if I'm doing something in an angle, and later on, I'm going to bring up an angle chart that's going to show you a little bit more about all these different angles. But in AutoCAD, the 0 angle is always pointing directly to the left. Going straight up is 90, to the left is 180, and going straight down is going to be 270. But you're going to see that more when I bring up the number, the angle kind of chart for you. All right. Now the syntax for this one is that it starts off by saying, okay, I'm starting here. Remember that we can either, once we start the line command, I can give it an absolute location or I can select somewhere. But I have to input a starting point for it. And now if I want to go to this point, you can see the syntax is @5. So the 5 is the distance, there's the angle, and then I have to tell it what the angle is. Okay? Now, I can do things backwards as well. And this is going to kind of confuse you, and I'm going to show you this in AutoCAD. But for some strange reason, and you know, this is kind of one of those weird things, but it'll help you understand AutoCAD. If I'm at this point and I want to go here, and of course I would never do this, but I can also type in @-5, right? So the -5 tells me to go this way, right? And then I give it an angle of 180. Well, that 180 tells it to go the other way, all right? So you're going to see that once we get to AutoCAD, and I'll give you some of those weird values just like that, just to help you understand what the syntax is actually doing. But you can follow along here and see that it's @5, 0. So if I want to go up to this direction, I want to go 6 units up, and I tell it the angle, which is 90. If I want to go back to this direction, I can tell it 5, because that's the distance here. And then I'm giving it the angle of 180. And then I don't tell you how to come back to this one because AutoCAD has a couple of different ways that we're going to do it. And we'll take a look at that once again, once we jump over to AutoCAD. All right. So like I was saying, the first command that we're going to do in AutoCAD will be the line command. It's going to be located underneath that draw menu. And in the line command, it's going to be used to create lines that are at any angle. So you're going to have an option to be able to select dynamically. And anytime you hear that word dynamically when it comes to AutoCAD, that means that you, the user, have total control over it. All right. So you're going to see when we're using that, we're going to either have a rubber banding effect or that line is going to be going straight. And if it's going straight up and down and things of that nature, that means that the ortho is on. If it is going and locking in certain angles, typically you're going to have your polar tracking turned on. Now, one thing to remember is that when we start doing these, is that the ortho and the polar tracking, they will not be used at the same time. It's no way that you can use these at the same time. AutoCAD is going to deactivate one when you try to select the other. And mainly because polar tracking has all of the stuff that ortho has in it. But if you're creating simple shapes that are 90 degrees, you're going to find that ortho is the best way to go. One other little thing that is kind of giving me here is that it's saying that if most lines are at these degrees, and like I said, once we get over to AutoCAD, you'll be able to see this a lot more. We're going to use ortho. If it's going to be in any of these, and trust me, this is not the only variance. These numbers can be half of it, and Polar Tracking will still take that. So what I mean by this can be 15, and so forth and so forth. Here's that number wheel that I was kind of telling you about. So if it's doing it this way, I would recommend that you use Polar Tracking. And you're going to be able to take a look at the drawing and say, okay, yeah, most of those lines are kind of going on these variants of 30 degrees or 45 degrees or 15 degrees. And if you see that, the best thing for you to do is turn your Polar Tracking on. The Polar Tracking icon is going to be located here, or just like it's next to the drawing, we can hit the function key 10 button, and that's going to do the exact same thing. So I always like to verify and make sure things are on depending on what I'm using. And if I hit F10, you're going to see those green tracking marks that's going to follow your cursor around. And once again, you're going to see that when we get to the drawing. If my lines are going to be strictly 0, 90, 180, or 270, or they're going to be the majority of that, I would highly recommend that you turn F8 on. That's going to be the one that's just going to make straight lines going on those angles. That icon is going to be here, and it's going to be the F8 button. So you're going to see both of these kind of toggle on and off. And like I said before, by default, if I'm on F8, if I have this one turned on and I select F10 or I come and click this one, this is going to turn off automatically. So they cannot coexist together. Once we created some things on the screen, we're going to want to erase some things. So the two different ways that we're going to use to erase is typically the most command that we're going to use is going to be the erase command. The icon looks like this. And once we get to AutoCAD, I will show you where it's at. But in my opinion, you're going to find that it's a lot easier just to type in E and hit the enter button instead of go looking for icons. So I'm going to try to incorporate that more because that's going to be a faster option for you. If you can remember what most of these commands kind of start with, you can start typing out the command, and you don't have to type out the whole command. Just enter, and it automatically knows what you want it to do. The command is going to look like this. It's going to be underneath the modify, and it will be this little pencil with the erase button. Now, if I want to also undo things, yes, that's going to erase some things as well. But remember that if you use the undo button, it's going to also undo any things that you've done. So if I drew a line and then I put an erase here and I did some other things and I started backing up, this is backing up through all of those commands. If I know the last thing that I erased and I want to bring that back, so regardless of however many commands I did after that, I can use the oops command. There's no shortcut for it. You have to type in the whole word oops. So that's going to be a really powerful and unique thing. Also, in some of these commands, there's going to be an undo function in them. So I just want you to keep that in mind, especially like in the line command. If I draw a line and it goes the wrong way, try not to escape out of the command. Just look down on your command line. You're going to have an option to either select undo, or you can use the U function, U enter, and then that will undo you back to the line. Okay? So that's going to be really important to stop you from starting over. If you look at something and you put in the syntax and it goes a totally different direction, just use the undo button or your undo function that's inside of the command, as opposed to escaping out of the command and then having to try to erase or undo or something of that nature. One of the kind of weird things about it is that you're going to have to be able to select things. So if I'm using a command like erase, I can have the option to select it beforehand or select it while it's in the command. So you can already see that the cursor looks like this. So if I'm not in any command, typically the cursor is going to look like this. I can physically just go click on that object, and then I can hit the erase command. And what that does is it pre-selects what you want to select, and then it'll use it. If I go into the erase command first, you're going to see that the cursor will change and look like this. And from here, I can actually click on any of these objects and keep going. If I want to adjust the size of this box, or it's just too small and it's going to be both of these boxes, I can type in the command pick box, and then I can adjust the size. A couple other things that you're going to have is you're going to have selection windows. So the way selection windows is going to work is that we're going to kind of know which area that we want to select, and depending on what stuff we want to select, that's going to be the side that I'm going to start clicking on. So anytime you're going to see this blue window, and you're going to see this more when we actually inside of the command, but anytime I see the blue window here, that means everything that is totally enclosed will be selected. If I use this green crossing window, it's going to be everything that it touches and that is enclosed will be selected. Remember, the way you're going to do this is it's going to be a single click. That means you hit that left button, you click it. Don't click and hold. One hold, complete click. So one click, and then you're going to go to the right and make that rectangle and do another click. To create the crossing window, it's going to be same thing, a left click, drag to the right, then left click. Remember what I'm saying, that these most important thing is that we're talking one click, not a click and hold. If you want to do a click and hold, you're going to create these lasso windows. So if I left click that button and I hold it down and I automatically go out to the right first, it's going to give me a free forming option to create a crossing window or a lasso window. If I left click again and hold that button down and I go to the left, and then I can start free forming around, it's going to create this green lasso, and the same rules apply. The blue window means everything that is fully enclosed will be selected. The green window is everything that it touches and that is enclosed will be selected. All right, and the last thing that we're going to see is while we're in some of these commands, we have some other options that we can use. So, for example, if I want to erase everything on my screen, I can go to the erase command and then I can type in the word all, and it will select everything on my screen. And then I'll hit enter one more time, and then everything is gone. I can select the previous thing that I created. I can use a fence, or I can use a last. So once we're inside of the actual AutoCAD command, you're going to see that we have the options to use that. Here at the bottom is a complete list of all of the other selection options that we can use, but by far these are the most common. So I'm strictly going to stick to these, but if you want to kind of play around with some of the other ones, these are some of the options. Okay. All right. So that's going to probably conclude this whole video for this slides. And like I said, this is the introductory to the first lecture. The next video that's going to come out is going to be me actually referencing back to this and doing some of the commands or some of the things that I showed you here to hopefully give you a better understanding. So if you got any value out of this, please, like I said before, like, subscribe, or if you just want to kind of support me a little bit, I do have a Patreon account that's coming with this, and you can get in there and you can have early access to a lot of these videos that I'm going to create. All right, so I want to thank you for watching and look forward to seeing you guys in this next video where I'm going to explain some of these concepts. Thank you.